1 in 5 UK adults will need to go into debt just to cover an unexpected bill of £250, not 2,500, not 1,000, just £250. And 30% of adults in this country have less than £1,000 saved in total. That means 4 out of every 10 people you know are one car repair or one broken boiler away from debt. Most of these people know they should have an emergency fund. The problem is they are saving towards the wrong number because they are using their salary to calculate it. There's a different number hiding in your bank statements that gives you the real target. Last year, my car needed new brake discs and pads. The bill came to £1,100, and if I did not get it done, the car would fail its MOT. No MOT means you cannot legally drive the car, and I needed it to get to work because I had £1,200 sitting in a separate account for exactly this kind of moment. I paid for the repair in cash without any credit card, without any interest, and without any payment plan. If I did not have that fund, the whole thing goes on a credit card at 20% interest. And it ends up costing me more than the original £1,100 in the end. That is the penalty you pay for not having an emergency fund. What I'm about to show you is exactly how to build one with the right number for your situation. But before I show you how to build it, you need to understand why the most popular method for calculating it is completely wrong. Most people calculate their emergency fund by taking their monthly salary and multiplying it by 3 or 6. If you earn £2,500 a month, you think you need between £7,500 or £15,000 saved. The range is so wide, it feels impossible before you even start. And the number itself is inflated because your salary includes money you spend on things that you do not need to survive. For example, meal outs, subscriptions, new clothes, and entertainment. None of those things matter in an actual emergency. In a real emergency, you're not going out for dinner. You're covering rent, food from supermarket, your utility bills, and your transport to work. That is it, and nothing else. So the first step of the emergency fund blueprint is to stop using your salary as a starting number and start using a number that is actually based on survival. I call this your essentials number, and it is the foundation of everything else that follows. That sounds like a small distinction, but it changes your target dramatically. And once you see your real number, the whole thing suddenly feels achievable instead of impossible. Most people include everything they currently spend when they add up their monthly costs. For example, gym memberships, Netflix, eating out, or new clothes. That gives you a bloated number that makes the target feel unreachable. Your essentials number is the minimum amount you need every month to keep your life running, not your lifestyle. Here is exactly what goes into it and nothing else. Rent or mortgage payment, that is your biggest essential cost. Council tax, you cannot skip this one legally. Gas and electricity to keep your home running. Water bill for the same reason. Groceries from supermarkets only, not meal outs and not takeaways. Transport to work, whether it is fuel, a bus pass or a train ticket. Phone contract, just the monthly cost, not the handset upgrade. Basic broadband, because you need internet for most jobs today. That is the full list. Think of your essentials number like the fuel gauge on a car. It tells you the minimum amount you need to keep the engine running. Everything above that line is comfort. Everything below is danger. Your emergency fund only needs to cover the fuel, not the upgrades. Now add up only the items on that essentials list for your specific situation. For most people in the UK, on an average salary, the essentials number lands somewhere between £1,200 to £1,800 a month. Your number might be higher if you live in London and lower if you have cheap rent. The point is that it is your number based on your actual costs, not a generic figure from the internet. Write it down now because the next step uses it directly. When you have your essentials number, you multiply it. The question is, by how much? The standard advice says 3 to 6 months, with no guidance on which end to aim for. Most people default to 3 months because it is a smaller number and feels more achievable. But 3 months only cover a short-term disruption like a car repair or a broken boiler. 3 months does not cover the thing that most people actually need an emergency fund for. The thing it needs to cover is losing your job. The average time to find a new job in the UK is between 3 and 6 months, depending on your industry and your experience level. If your essentials number is £1,500 a month and you only have 3 months saved, that is £4,500. If your job search takes 4 months, you run out of money before you find the work. And the decisions you make when you are desperate for money are never good financial decisions. You take the first job that offers anything, even if it pays less than what you left. You put essential cost on a credit card and start the debt cycle all over again. 6 months gives you breathing room to find the right job, not just any job. I call this the multiply rule. Your essentials number times 6 equals your emergency fund target. If your essentials cost is 1500 a month, your target should be £9,000, not £15,000, which is what you get when you use your full salary, not £4,500, which is too thin to cover a real job loss. £9,000 is the number that actually protects you from most common financial disasters. Now you have the exact target, but where this money lives matters just as much as how much of it you have. Most people keep their emergency fund in the same current account they spend from. They see a big balance and feel like they have plenty of money available. Then they spend it because available money always gets spent. Your emergency fund must live in a completely separate account from your current account, ideally with a different bank entirely, so you cannot see it every time you check your balance. I call this the separation principle. Think of it like a fire extinguisher behind the glass. It is there for emergencies only. You can see it is there, but you cannot casually grab it. That glass barrier is what a separate bank account creates between you and your emergency fund. Without the glass, you reach for it every time something feels urgent, even when it's not a real emergency. Open a high yield saving account with an online bank. Marcus, Chase UK, and Chip all are paying between 4 to 5% interest right now. Most high street current accounts pay close to nothing on the same money. On a £9,000 emergency fund, 4% interest earns you £360 a year. At 1%, it earns you £90. That is £270 a year your fund earns just by sitting in the right place. And it gives your money a fighting chance against inflation. If your fund earns 4% and inflation runs at 3%, your money holds its real value. If it earns nothing, your fund is quietly shrinking every year without you touching it. Now you have the number and you have the account and you know why it matters. But most people hear the target like £9,000 and think that is impossible on their income. It is not impossible. It just takes a system and some time. Let me pause here for a second. Look at what you have already built in this video. You know your essentials number, you know the multiply rule, and you know the separation principle. That is the 3 steps of emergency fund blueprint done. You now have a specific pound figure and a specific place to put it. But remember what I said at the start of this video? Most people use the wrong number to calculate their emergency fund. You have the right number now. What comes next is how to actually build it from zero and what happens when it is full. The second part is the one most people never reach, and it is genuinely worth staying for. Everything up to now was planning. What comes next is building. Most people try to save for their emergency fund by putting aside whatever is left at the end of the month. Nothing is ever left because spending fills every available gap. The money has to leave your account on payday before you get a chance to spend it. Think of it like paying rent. You would never skip your rent and hope you have enough left. Your emergency fund should work the same way. It gets paid on the first of the month like a bill. If you have watched my video on what to do with your first £1,000, you already know your first milestone. Your first £1,000 is your emergency buffer, the minimum barrier between you and going backwards. Once that first £1,000 is in place, you keep building towards your full target. Set up a standing order on the day you get paid. A fixed amount leaves your spending account and goes straight into your emergency fund automatically. The amount depends entirely on your situation right now. If you can do 200 a month, your 9,000 targets takes roughly 45 months. If you can do £300 a month, it takes about 30 months. If you can do 400 a month, it takes just under 2 years. Here's what matters more than the amount. You do not skip a single month. The consistency is more important than the size of each transfer. £100 every single month without a fail beats £300 some months and nothing the next. Because the moment you start skipping months, the habit breaks. And a broken savings habit is harder to restart than it was to build in the first place. Automate it and forget about it. Let it build quietly in the background. One day you will check the balance and realize you have months of protection sitting there. Now, here's a question nobody asks about emergency funds. What happens when you actually have to use it? Most people use their emergency fund and then go back to their normal saving and investing routine as if nothing happened. Their fund now has a hole in it, but they treat it like a problem for later. The moment you use your emergency fund, rebuilding it becomes your number one financial priority. Above investing, above extra debt payments, above everything except your essential bills. I call this the rebuild priority. Emergencies happen. That is the whole point of having the fund in the first place. Maybe you use £1,100 on a car repair like I did. Your £9,000 fund is now £7,900 and the protection is thinner. The fund goes back to the top of the list until it is full again. Because an emergency fund with a hole in it is weaker against the next surprise. And surprises do not space themselves out politely. A car repair in March can easily be followed by a boiler issue in May. If you do not rebuild it after the first hit, the second one sends you straight into debt. Redirect every spare pound back into the fund until it reaches the target again. This is not a punishment, it is protection. The faster you rebuild, the faster you are fully covered again. Now, here's the part that makes all of this effort worth it over the long term. And it is the part most people building an emergency fund never think about. The final step is what turns months of discipline into something life changing. There's a moment in this process that changes everything. The day your emergency fund hits the full target, your £9,000 is sitting safely in a separate account earning interest. You are fully protected against the most common financial disasters. And that monthly transfer you have been making for months or even years is suddenly free. I call this the acceleration point. That 200, 300 or 400 pounds a month that was going into your emergency fund every payday now redirects somewhere far more powerful. It goes into your stocks and shares ISA, into a global index fund, compounding every month from that point forward. Let me show you what this looks like with real numbers. Say you are putting £300 a month into your emergency fund. After 30 months, your fund is full at £9,000. Now that same £300 a month goes into a global index fund instead. At 10% average return over 25 years, that £300 a month grows to over £300,000. You did not change the amount you are setting aside each month. You just changed where it goes once the fund is complete. You showed the same discipline and same standing order, but now the money is compounding instead of just sitting there. This is the reward for finishing your emergency fund. Your investing accelerates without you earning a single extra pound. When I reached my own target, it felt like a switch flipped. For the first time, every pound I was setting aside was growing instead of just sitting there as insurance. It took me longer than it should have to reach my target because I kept dipping into the fund for the things that were not real emergencies. Once I stopped doing that and followed the rebuild priority properly, the number climbed faster than I expected. There's something I'm working on for a future video that connects directly to this. How a single number you have probably never checked could be quietly costing you thousands on your mortgage, your car finance, and everything else you borrow. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. At the start of this video, I told you most people use the wrong number to calculate their emergency fund. Now you know what the right number is. It's not your salary, it's your essentials number, the minimum amount you need each month to keep your life running, like rent, council tax, utilities, groceries, transport, phone, and broadband, but nothing else. Multiply that by 6. That is your target. Here's the emergency fund blueprint one final time. Step 1. Calculate your essentials number. Add up only your true survival costs, not your full lifestyle spending. Step 2. Apply the multiply rule. Essentials times 6 gives you the specific target for your situation. Step 3. Follow the separation principle. Open a separate high-yield savings account with a different bank. That gives you 4 to 5% interest, not just 1%. Step 4. Automate a fixed monthly transfer on payday and never skip a month. Consistency beats amount every single time. Step 5. If you use the fund, apply the rebuild priority. Rebuilding becomes your number one financial priority and above everything except essential bills. Step 6. Reach the acceleration point once the fund is full. Redirect that monthly amount into stocks and shares ISA and start investing. That is the emergency fund blueprint. 6 steps from zero to fully protected. And here's one bonus most people overlook. My emergency fund covered an £1,100 car repair last year without me touching a credit card. If I did not have that fund, the car repairs on a card at 20% interest. 6 months later, that £1,100 problem has become a £1,300 problem. I have made zero progress on anything else because I'm paying off a car repair with interest. The emergency fund cost me nothing, but not having one would have cost me hundreds. Just set up the saving account and the standing order today. You can figure out the rest as you go. Now, there is a hidden number attached to your name that quietly decides how much you pay for your mortgage, your car finance, and even your phone contract. Most people have never checked it, and it is costing them thousands. I made a video on that. It is a good one. That video is right here. Don't click on it just yet. Make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. I make videos like this every single week. I'll see you in the next one.